Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. When you become famous, usually what happens is you've got a target painted on your back, especially if you are a controversial individual that becomes somewhat famous and you're controversial deemed by the mainstream media. If the mainstream media doesn't like anything that you have to say or anything that you do, guaranteed they'll let you know about it by writing up hit pieces and they'll try and dismantle everything that you stand for, especially if you are a podcaster. If the mainstream media catches wind of, say, a controversial figure that they don't like, especially in the realm of health, let's say, they will go after you and they will use all of these so-called sources. They're not going to name any of these sources, but they'll just say professional doctors to make it sound like you're the bad person and really they're the good people trying to condemn your good work. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Stephen Bartlett, because Stephen Bartlett at the moment is being absolutely hammered in the mainstream media. And why? Because he's had these mainstream media calls them controversial health figures spreading misinformation and disinformation. And obviously, because Stephen Bartlett dares to have a variety of people on his podcast that go against the mainstream narrative, that's the wrong thing to do nowadays, according to the mainstream media. You don't hate the mainstream media nearly enough as you do today. Believe it or not, the mainstream media just needs to learn to shut up, stop going after people that they don't need to go after. Stephen Bartlett, I believe, is a nice individual. He seems like a nice individual. He seems like someone who's got his life in order. He's got his head screwed on straight. And, well, he wants to learn. I enjoy many of his podcasts, albeit some of the titles in the podcasts, I get it, they're a little bit intense, but hey, I mean, they don't make me want to watch the video or the podcast even more just because he's got a crazy title. I look at the title and I'm going, that's actually pretty clever. Well done. The guy ran a marketing PR sort of company for a long time. I think he still runs it. He's got Flight Story. He's got all of these cool endeavors. He's an investor in many companies. People, if you like the guy, which I evidently do, then the mainstream media will evidently go after you if you say something that they disagree with. And, well, it's happened, ladies and gentlemen. So we have all these articles from obviously left-leaning news outlets, and one of them in particular, The Independent, which we all know where The Independent is not actually being independent. It's being very left-leaning. Funny how it's got the actual name of the news organization is The Independent, but they're very left-leaning. And they've written an article going, downfall of a CEO, the real reason Stephen Bartlett became the man we love to hate. Last year, a BBC investigation found Bartlett was amplifying harmful health misinformation on his number one ranked podcast, Diary of a CEO. Diary of a CEO is one of the most notable and popular podcasts out there. If you weren't already aware of that, you don't know who Stephen Bartlett is. And of course, the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, if you even want to call it British anymore. I mean, it is the bane of human society at the moment, the BBC. It is just one of the most notable news companies that lies to the skin of their teeth, right? And they launched this investigation into Stephen Bartlett and they found, he's spreading harmful health information according to these so-called professionals and experts, but we don't know who any of the experts are. Funny how they all remain anonymous, but I'm happy to weigh in anonymously saying that Stephen Bartlett is spreading harmful health misinformation. Yes, that's evidently what we're going to stay away from this, but we'll say it from afar that he's doing the wrong thing. Funny that. Bunch of cowards. He has now stepped down as director of Huel. Zoe Beauty looks at the curious legacy of the Dragon's Den star diving options. Just because he steps away from Huel, which he used to promote all the time, doesn't mean that there's going to be a major downfall of Stephen. Like, he's probably doing other things, which evidently he is. You're allowed to do other things. CEO, podcast host, author, investor, self-proclaimed happy, sexy millionaire, Stephen Bartlett has never been short of accolades. His narrative is tight. Bartlett is a university dropout who grew his financial hardship but made $1 million by 23, meaning credit where credit is due. If you've ever heard about Stephen's story, it is a wild one, and he made something of himself. That is to be celebrated, if you ask me. Today, he's the youngest investor to get a seat in the BBC's Dragon's Den. And over the years, Dragon's Den is like Shark Tank, just the British version. Over the years, Bartlett has gained a reputation as an entrepreneurial renegade and wellness guru. I wouldn't say wellness guru. That's a bit of a stretch, if you ask me. More than 10 million people download his cult podcast, Diary of a CEO, every month. Love how they include the word cult there. Funny that. I don't think it's a cult, but hey, he's definitely created a culture of sorts. His book of the same name, as well as his memoir, which really is titled Happy Sexy Millionaire, is a bestseller. The guy is a marketing genius. Like, look at it from that perspective, you get the title. Forbes magazine valued his social media investment empire at £71 million when he was just 26 years old. He came from little and made a lot, a perfect rags to riches story. And yet, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, people really don't like Stephen Bartlett. Who are these people? You may be wondering. Gee, I don't know. Like huge swaths of people. They don't like the way he speaks based on no intimate knowledge of him at all, and just a feeling. All kinds of people will tell you they think he's a narcissist, a grifter, a hustler. Well, that's a little bit of a stretch if you ask me. He's a new age hippie, but made all his money in marketing and social media. Another twined recently. He just promotes quacks and mad health theories, says another. More gripes. He lets people like Matt Hancock whinge to him about being in love on his podcast. He wears fancy clothing. I just found him very smug. Look, you're allowed to have an opinion of anyone. Like, I'm all for people having an opinion, but people just love to complain nowadays. I don't know if you noticed that, but mate, they just pick somebody they don't like and they just go after them. Like, I swear, the moment people start, which has already happened, I'll have you know, people start going after me for saying things that they disagree with, so be it. Like, it's just, for me, if you don't like somebody, so what? Like, it is what it is at the end of the day. There are not unique options. In fact, social media platforms are full of them. And this week, tongues are bound to be wagging once again as Bartlett steps down from his position as director of meal replacement brand Huel. And back in August, his deal with the nutritionally complete food brand and wellness program AbZoe was brought to attention by the Advertising Standards Authority, ASA. Paid for promotions on Facebook, shared in February, featured Bartlett alongside an endorsement that Huel's Daily Greens drink is the brand's best product. Another in which Bartlett is pictured with a Zoe patch on his arm. He claims the app might just change your life. Unfortunately, the ads failed to declare some pretty important information: that Bartlett was an investor in both brands. Several complaints were made challenging whether the omission of his commercial interest in the two brands was misleading to the public. The ASA agreed that it was. Well, and like, you fail to, okay, the whole advertising of brands and things of that nature, like, I won't personally promote anything on this platform unless I have tried it. And if I am an investor, I will more than happy be declaring that. But if I'm not, and I'm just a person that loves the product and I want you guys to benefit from it, no, you don't need to really declare it. So do I think that Stephen should have declared he was an investor? Yes, I do. But I think he said many times that, oh, I'm an investor in the company. Like, he would announce it on his podcast. It wasn't the only time that Bartlett found himself in hot water last year. Wouldn't really call what you spoke about a moment ago hot water, mate. But anyway, in December, an investigation by the BBC World Service, of course, we can definitely trust the BBC World Service, ladies and gentlemen, found that Bartlett is amplifying harmful health misinformation on his number one ranked podcast. Jealous much, people? The investigation, I love how they call it an investigation. We listened to all the podcasts. We investigated all the claims that these doctors were making and these healthcare professionals were making. And you know what? The investigation found that he's spreading misinformation, which studied 15 specific episodes of the Diary of a CEO out of 400. Said that he was allowing claims from guests to go unchallenged despite being disproven. Yeah, Stephen Bartlett ain't Dr. Mike, okay? Which, by the way, Dr. Mike shares a lot of misinformation too, I'll have you know. So if you are a guest and you don't know like how to counteract a healthcare professional's claims, what are you supposed to do? You just let them say it. Like, it'd be like someone, I know nothing about, you know, this one particular diet, and I have a doctor on that I want to learn about that particular diet. And if they make a claim that, say, maybe another person deems to be inaccurate, and I don't know that it's inaccurate because I'm just learning, and I let it slide, I don't challenge it at all, people are getting angry at me for that. That's exactly what's happening to Stephen. How ridiculous is that? For instance, the cancer can be treated by following a keto diet rather than proven treatments. It's dangerous because it creates distrust of conventional medicine, they said. Right. Seems like you just want to keep getting paid because guess what cancer thrives off? Sugar, carbohydrates, those things. Keto is starving the body of sugar and carbohydrates. So there would be, in my opinion, something that kind of clicks in the brain and makes sense. Oh, if cancer is thriving off sugar, maybe it might be a good idea to starve it of that and see what happens. Right? Oh, but that's too controversial because we're not going to put people on chemotherapy, which makes us money. Like, how absurd is that? It's fair to say people were quite angry. Right. I wasn't angry, to be honest. Why did he think he would get away with it? Ryan T. Williams, who co-founded It's Gone Viral. You can't make any of this stuff up. I swear, my friends. Like, honestly, why did he think he would get away with it? Says Ryan T. Williams, co-founded It's Gone Viral, a competitor of Social Chain, the company that began Bartlett's career. Well, there you have it. It's like, jealous much? Said last week, it's not only a legal obligation, but a moral one too. This is like the guy who owns McDonald's telling you Big Macs are good for you. Bit different if you actually know that Big Macs are not good for you, which everyone knows Big Macs are not good for you. Same with fast food. Like, that is evidently clear. Bad analogy, mate. His latest scandal, in a small peak in the mountain of backlash Bartlett faces for his influential position in wellness culture. It comes after he found himself embroiled in another health scandal involving ACU Seeds, an ear seeds acupuncture company that appeared on Dragon's Den. Oh, boy. Like, you're not allowing... The man does so many different things, right? So you can't go, he's never going to have any controversies because he's doing so much. Me personally, I wouldn't do as much as Stephen's doing because I want to be able to manage the things that I've got at the moment and not get ahead of myself and not like lose track or lose sight of things that I really want. But hey, if you want to make more money, I guess you got to invest in a lot of different companies and spread out your time. I don't know. I'm not Stephen. Bartlett made a significant investment, but when the episode attracted mass criticism, Giselle Boxer, who founded the company, was accused of selling snake oil after claiming a similar product helped her recover from myalgic ME, whatever, endocrinophilitis, whatever it's called. It was temporarily removed from the BBC. Bartlett's brother, Jason, not Stephen himself, was listed as a director. Born in Botswana, his Nigerian mum and British dad moved Bartlett and three older siblings to Plymouth, Devon, when he was 2. It was a nice white middle class area. Love how they included that, where they struggled financially, he says. After scraping through school, he left his business management course at Manchester Metropolitan University after attending one lecture. It was then he set up Social Chain with friend and business partner Dominic McGregor. The company, a social media and marketing brand, was undoubtedly very successful and began to evolve, eventually merging with German brand Lumaland and making Bartlett co-CEO of Social Chain AG in 2019. In 2021, its revenue expectations reported as more than £500 million. In 2023, reports said that had risen to almost £1 billion. Yet, the same year, Social Chain Limited, Bartlett's origin startup, sold in an acquisition deal for just $7.7 million. To his admirers, his wealth appeared to have been overstated. Bartlett took to X to clarify the situation. He sold the original agency business we had started in Manchester almost 10 years ago. He said, not the rest of the 30-plus company portfolio under the umbrella of Social Chain, but a seed was already planted. Nick Styliano says the details of Bartlett's success was inspirational. It's an inspirational mission, and it began to be questioned. It exaggerated to make him part of some grand South mythology, he says, instead of simply a very talented young man who's done well for himself, he says. The British people love an underdog and cheer on the rags to riches story, but the turbo LinkedIn brags, like 250-word posts about his brave decision not to wear suits on Dragon's Den, for example, just rubs people up the wrong way. Who gives a flying crap? Honestly, people are like, you know what they call this? They're making a mountain out of a molehill, right? It's ridiculous. Like, just leave the guy alone. So evidently, this article is just going after Stephen for hosting a range of people on his podcast that have difference of opinions and have actual, I guess, their own version of evidence to go by. And I think it's because Stephen has been having lots of right-wingers, if you want to call them that, on his podcast of late. And, well, that's put an automatic target from left-leaning institutions on his back. And, well, people don't like it. So it seems as if the moment you go anywhere close to being a supporter of right-wing ideology or just conservatism, or you lean a little bit like that, or you just have a guest on your show that is remotely someone that likes Trump, you're going to be attacked. You're going to be gone after by the mainstream media. So he's also this article also speaks about billionaire Brian Johnson, who claims he's going to live forever by reversing his aging with 111 pills per day in a vegan diet, has also been featured. So apparently that's a problem. Look, they also spoke about Gary Brecker, a self-proclaimed human biologist who says he can predict a person's death to the exact month, and that Alzheimer's disease is a type of diabetes. He has no medical degree, and his claims that excess folic acid from food causes ADHD are not based on any evidence. Well, I happen to know that there are some doctors that speak about Alzheimer's being a type of diabetes. I have heard doctors speak about that, and I am fully aware with those claims. Doesn't mean that they're wrong, just means that you study it and you actually learn more about it. Like you do, like, that's what science is about, right? You do research and you figure things out. But no. Mainstream media doesn't want to do that. Don't want to talk about any of these ideas on the podcast because apparently it's spreading misinformation. Oh, dear. So other podcast bros, I love how they do this, like Joe Rogan, an MMA expert turned cult-like figure, or Jordan Peterson, once simply a clinical psychologist, now a right-wing conspiratist with all the answers, are sitting in the same studio. There you have it, my friends. I said it a moment ago. The moment you have any of these people on your podcast, you're doomed. You do. They will go after you and say you're spreading hateful misinformation or disinformation or whatever they want to say. Meanwhile, you as the host, you get pillared by the mainstream media. And you know what? People can be so, when it comes to the mainstream media, they can trust still to this day. But it's usually the quacks that believe the mainstream media and what they're saying. Like, honestly, why are the mainstream media going after someone like Stephen Bartlett? You may be wondering. It's not the fall of his empire. For goodness sake, the man's smarter than that. People still love the Diary of a CEO. People, like 10 million people, for goodness sake, tune in regularly to listen. His podcast episodes get millions of views. So honestly, the mainstream media seems like they're jealous and they need to back the hell off. Like, good grief. Anyway, just want to let you guys know about this story. I thought it was interesting. Why they're going after Stephen Bartlett. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with the guy at all. Yes, he has people. I've had people on here and I've found what they've said to be interesting. You get smarter when you listen to a variety of different ideas. You don't live inside an echo chamber, which is what the mainstream media evidently does. The woke echo chamber of stupidity, if you ask me. Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.